All right. Hello, and welcome back to the Out of Spec podcast in Las Vegas.
That's right, Las Vegas, Nevada.
Yes, we are here for the Mint 400. Chevy has released their Chevy ZR2. Well, not an actual production vehicle, but it's their competition vehicle for the Mint 400. And it's the only EV entry vehicle this year. We had Rivian last year. Rivian's here again this year, but Chevy is now here for the Mint 400.
Right, Silverado EV ZR2. Chevy's running a few ZR2s and even a trophy truck, but that's the full Mint 400 race. We're talking about the EV version, which is the EV ZR2, which is running in the EV class, which is not actually doing the full race because the full race, the Mint 400, is 400 miles. Yes, the Silverado EV has a range over 400 miles, but not when it's off-road in race mode, getting, yes, 1/2 of a mile per kilowatt hour.
Yeah, horrible efficiency. This thing's already, we're told, under 10,000 pounds. And, of course, that's the 9,000 pounds with all of the equipment and heavy tires and skid plates and roll cage, everything that they have added onto it. So this thing it's hefty. It's a big boy.
Right. It is technically under 10,000 pounds, but barely, because once you add the people or even just a driver, I think it's over 10,000 pounds. Wicked. So 5 tons, you're looking at 1 Miata worth of weight for every wheel, which is insane. But this thing is sick, technical term, and I'm excited to talk about it.
Yeah, I kind of go over a history of a bit. So the Mint 400, kind of wrote this down in my little journal here, my Iona journal. So the Mint 400 was started in 1968 as a promotion event for the Mint Hotel. They stopped in 1989 and then started again in 2008. And it, of course, the Mint 400, it is a 400-mile race. Yep. But, of course, they have other divisions and classes. They even had some, like, kids on, like, these tiny 4 wheels.
Terrifying.
And, right, like, children are doing this. But, of course, for the EVs, they're doing a 100-mile shorter version of the Mint 400. Kind of on the top, some of the specs. So, 1,100 horsepower.
Yep, 1,200 pound-feet of torque. That's what I'm going to officially quote. GM states 11,500 pound-feet of torque. That in and of itself is a rant worth stating because that is wheel horsepower. Wheel torque. No one quotes in wheel torque. That's just a cheating metric for making a number sound really big. That's what they did for the Super Bowl ad. What's the opposite of condone it? I hate that. Jason Penske has a whole video on Engineering Explained on why that's misleading. Because, a Bronco has more wheel torque than this thing. Yeah. Like a factory Bronco. Like, that's cheating.
These advertising numbers, they're just trying to...
Yeah, so the actual torque number to think about is 1,200 pound-feet, which is insane still. So, yes, this is 1,100 horsepower. And it's a lot of horsepower. The Silverado EV RST was the current most powerful one with 700 something. Years makes a difference. This is a lot. This makes difference. And this is done through a tri-motor setup. That's how they have so much more horsepower than the Silverado EV RST. This is a tri-motor setup from a GM product, the Hummer EV. So this whole truck, ZR2, is a 98% production components. They are running in a production class, so they couldn't just build a totally custom wild EV race thing like we've seen Ford do for the Pikes Peak hill climb, and other companies have done crazy one-off race EV vehicles. This is production-ish. So the powertrain is from a Hummer EV that they had, and actually it's dialed to 11, literally. The Hummer EV tri-motor powertrain makes 1,000 horsepower. This makes 1,100, so 1,000 to 1,100. Dialed to 11. When he said that, I was like, that's brilliant. But yeah, otherwise, same 24 module battery pack we've seen in most of the bigger GM vehicles. I actually drove here to Vegas in a Silverado EV LT, which is the smaller 20 module battery pack. Still huge. It's weird that it's called small. And the term they gave it was extended range. And it's a small battery, so that's really annoying. more marketing things. They need to chill with this 11,000 pound-feet of torque and also the extended battery being the small battery. It's just confusing. But either way, that's a high-level ZR2 powertrain numbers.
I'm glad you had all that memorized.
Well, it makes all the headlines. That's all the headlines is the powertrain numbers. But I feel like there's more that goes into it, and there's more that they were excited to share. I mean, what was your impression?
Insane. I think just off the top of my head. I mean, just coming from the Ford performance event, of course, you can watch that video in the iCard over here. But, you know, they had the El Bandito, which is Ford's like off-road for the King of the Hammers based on the Bronco, the T1 Super Truck. So I've been more interested in motorsports as of late. And something I mentioned was that we don't see a lot of EV automakers doing this diving into motorsports and just creating extreme, crazy EVs. And so seeing Chevy do something like this with the Silverado EV is just epic. I mean, it looks cool. Everyone loves off-road cars. I mean, I think that's just, everyone loves off-road vehicles. And so this is just taking the Silverado EV and turning it up to 11.
Yeah, and making it more off-road, which a huge component of that is suspension. So they have a new, tri something valve. I forget the whole, it's an acronym, but basically a new suspension setup, multi-valve suspension setup that allows for, I think it was 13 inches of suspension travel, which is much needed in the desert dune type situation, not full dunes, but like rugged desert terrain racing. I mean, that's no joke. So that helps dramatically. That's kind of a prototype shock situation. That is one of the components that's not technically production, but it could be. It could end up being production. Chevy notably unveiled also the full like Trail Boss trim of the Silverado EV, which is coming this coming summer. And that is going to be the most off-road variant. Now, Trail Boss in Chevy's lineup, and historically speaking, is not a super aggressive off-road, but it is like almost like the entry off-road variant. So that'll be cool to see with 18-inch wheels, 35-inch tires, red tow hooks, which made it onto this ZR2 as well, and maybe some suspension changes. We're not sure on everything on the Trail Boss. They haven't announced everything on that, but even just looks-wise, just looks a bit more off-roady. This thing, the ZR2, looks the business, and it looks like an Avalanche. And
they should have just called it the Avalanche
that is
V or something.
High praise. Anything that looks like an Avalanche, Avalanche V, because it ends with EV.
Right, yeah.
Oh man, that would be. Imagine
Chevy marketing. Listen,
imagine if Cadillac comes out with an EV truck, and they use the Avalanche term there, and then Cadillac has the Cadillac V.
Oh yeah, line of
that would okay.
Really
We're solving their marketing, their product lines right now. But yeah, the suspension is a big piece. Otherwise, what's also not technically production is a roll cage. They had a full roll cage built for this thing for safety. 3 race seats, 2 up front, and then 1 center middle seat in the back, which is super cool. So it's like a reverse McLaren F1 situation. At least that's what I thought of. Otherwise, typical, fire extinguishers. They removed the airbags, full harness bucket seats situation, and the door window meshes, whatever they're called.
Yeah. Screens.
Nets.
Nets. There you go.
So that it looks cool, looks rad. It's good. It's got 37-inch KM, I think it was KM3s on it, off-road tire, mud terrains, and 2 full-size spares in the bed. Which, to your point, when we're looking at these trucks, all the other trucks had them like upright. This had them flat, which could be an aero thing, but also I theorize it just makes it look like more Silverado EV, like just keeping that shape, not disrupted by tires sticking out of the bed. That was my theory, but don't know for sure. but yeah, it's set up for anything, and I would love to rip this around the desert, which we weren't allowed to drive it, but
Unfortunately,
yeah.
you should have just taken it. Just you know.
So I think this is so cool. I mean, there's a whole video, by the way, on Out of Spec Reviews if you want to watch like a full tour with engineer Tim, who is basically in charge somewhat of this project, and he really takes us through a lot of details, a lot of things more in depth than we're giving you here. This is kind of a high level overview. But yeah, I mean, any more thoughts on?
Yeah, no, of course. Yeah, by the time you guys watch this, Jordan's video will be live, so that will be in the description, and also the iCard here. I love doing that, just pointing where it is. But yeah, I think as a whole, like, crazy concept. I want to see more of these out there. And this is something that was mentioned in your video, right? They took a pre-existing Chevy work truck that I guess was already in their fleet and a pre-production version, and then just transformed it into this ZR2. So they're something that was already existing. I always wonder what automakers do with their test vehicles. How long do they stay in their fleet? And they took this, kind of upgraded it, right? Added another motor in the back. Well, this dual tri-motor setup. But what do you call this? It's one motor in the front, but then two in the back. But it's not dual motor vehicle. What do you?
Yeah, just tri-motor is really all that we can call it. But yeah, and it was wild that this development process was 5-ish months.
Yeah.
Which is, yeah, I mean, a small team. He said about a dozen engineers, and the full support of the GM company making this, because racing is important. I mean, a lot of people don't put enough weight on it, and I think I'm excited to see EVs, or I guess racing embrace more EVs, or EVs embrace racing, either way, because that whatever is developed in these race teams, these like little skunkworks teams, can be really interesting tech that can trickle down to the everyday consumer car. We see this in motorsports elsewhere. I mean, even some tech developed in Formula One, et cetera, eventually makes,
for example.
Lucid's race batteries, like everything makes it back into production cars, which is a benefit for the consumer. So honestly, racing EVs is pretty cool. And something like this, like you said earlier, off-road racing, people love that. And so this is a good way to maybe test the waters. Like, this is a generally more positive response than, say, if GM had put an electric Camaro into NASCAR. Like, no one would take that seriously. But somehow this has changed some people's minds. I mean, they have their ZR2 Silverado ice truck, ZR2 Colorado, and the trophy truck. So 4 trucks total, 3 gas trucks. This has like as much power as all 3 of those combined. Well, not really, but those all have like less than half the horsepower of this.
I think the trophy truck had like 700, and then the Colorado had like 300, and the Silverado had 400. So this thing, it's competing with those.
Yeah, so the skeptics have been seeing these specs, and they're like, oh, wait, that thing looks cool and has all the power in the world, and that's what they're planning to do in the race. So we'll have probably another episode on the race itself, just documenting how that goes, what it looks like, how the EV class fares, and it's a different track this year. Traditionally, it's like a 400-mile, I don't know if it's out and back or whatever, but it's a huge loop, or maybe it's like a 100-mile loop done 4 times, I forget. But this time it's a 73-mile loop. So they're doing 1 lap. So it's actually not even 100 miles. It's 73 miles for the EV truck. So the other trucks will do however many loops to get to 400 miles, or maybe the trophy one was less than that because it's an unlimited class. I don't know. A lot to learn with the race. So stay tuned.
Awesome. Of course, if you guys are watching this after that video goes live, that'll also be in the description as well. But let us know what you guys think. EV motorsports, as Jordan just mentioned, it trickles down into production vehicles, and I think it draws an audience into how cool electric vehicles can be. and it puts smiles on people's faces, impresses people. Chris Hall, who I believe is the person who's driving this, also drove the trophy trucks and the other Silverado and Colorado ZR2s. Tim said he was surprised by the Silverado EV as well, and I guess at first wasn't too into it, but you drive it, and for a lot of people, butts and seats kind of put people into EVs and see how impressive they are. But yeah, do you have any other crazy tidbits?
No, I'm just curious, and yeah, that was a funny stat. Was 0.4 to 0.5 miles per kilowatt hour is the efficiency when racing off road. So that's what you get with 10,000 pounds, over 200 and something, 220-ish kilowatt hours, tri-motor, just big numbers out there, which results in small number efficiency. But it's gonna be fun. It's gonna be a blast. I guess we gotta rest up and get ready for that. But I guess we'll see you out there, and we'll see you all after the race with our thoughts.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys so much for watching. This is the Out of Spec podcast. What are we doing? This got to be the Out of Spec news, Out of Spec. We're working on that. But thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you guys in the next one.